Okay, welcome back. I hope you guys you have watched the previous video under vectors on how we can find the magnitude of the vector, how we can find the direction of the vector. But now in this video, we want to talk about how can you find or how can we find the direction of that vector, or how can we find the angle. Now we have observed that a lot of people they're having challenges on how to find the direction or the angle. So basically when we're talking about the direction in vectors, or when you find the theta, or when you find the angle, in short, you find the angle. That angle is just basically the direction we are talking about. Okay. So now, what we need to understand is we have done everything on how to find the magnitude of that angle or the magnitude of that vector. Now, how can you find the direction? Okay, so before we continue, we need first to understand certain things here. We need to understand the quadrants. So if I have my graph here, let me redraw it. If I have my graph here, okay, I have another one here. You agree with me that this is the first quadrant, or let me use the different color. You agree with me that that is the first quadrant? Sure, you agree with me that that is the first quadrant. That is the second quadrant. It is the third quadrant. It is the fourth quadrant. And we know that here we have 0. This is the x, positive x in short, positive y. We do this in case. So we have positive y, negative y, and negative x. Okay. So now, when finding the magnitude of a vector, we said that let's say maybe we have got vector a. We said that you are going to say vector a. If you want to find vector a, you are going to say that the square root of ax, you're going to say the square root of ax squared plus b or ay squared. Then now these ax and ay, meaning that is the x component of vector, x component of vector a. Okay, and ay is also y component of vector a. Now what if we want to find the what? The angle. Now when finding the angle, we said the formula which we use when finding the angle, you agree with me that we said is tan, or we said is tan theta is equal to the y component over the x component. Okay, now if I want to find the theta, you agree with me that we said is tan inverse of y component over x component. That's what we said. But now, how can you know to say this angle is supposed to go in first quadrant, this angle is supposed to go in third quadrant? How can you know that? Okay, so now in this video, what I'm going to teach you guys is note that what we are going to be doing, we are going to be getting the absolute value. What do I mean when I say the absolute value? And here no one is going to penalize you. If you find that your y component is negative and your x component or is positive, or vice versa, when plugging in the values there, don't plug in negative, just get the absolute value. If it is negative 2, just plug in 2, then follow the steps which I'm going to tell you. Wonderful. Let's continue. So now What comes next? Upon knowing that you get the absolute value, then what do we do next? Now, the next thing what we are supposed to do is this. We know that here we have what we call 0 degrees. Here we have 90 degrees. Here we have 180. Here we have 217. And here we also have 360 degrees. Okay, now what happens? Okay, let me just remove this. What happens next? So what will happen there is this. What will happen there is this. When you resolve a vector into x and y component, and you come across to say you have discovered that you have found that your x component is positive and your y component is also positive. When you find this, when you find the angle, you plug in the values to say theta is equal to tan inverse the y over x component. You plug in the values. Now what happens after plugging the values? Okay, so the theta which you are going to find here, that is the answer here. Okay, so when you find that the x component and y component, they are both positive, the theta which you are going to find, just get the same answer. That is the answer you are looking for. Perfect. What if our x is negative? Our x is negative and our y is positive. As you can see, if I can check here, this region here, this is my y positive, and this region, this is my x, meaning that angle which I'm looking for is supposed to fall in second quadrant. But how do I do that? After plugging everything here in this formula to say theta is equal to tan inverse y over x, after plugging the values, because I know to say from 0 to that particular negative x is 180, I'm supposed to say 180 degrees minus the theta which I'm going to find there, meaning that is the answer which I'm looking for. Okay, now these principles, they work only and if only you plug in the positive values. So what if our x is negative and our y is also negative? Here our y is negative in this line, our x is negative in that line, meaning the angle is supposed to fall in third quadrant. But here, don't be tempted to say 270 minus that angle. No, here you say 118 plus the theta. Okay, then the next one is the fourth quadrant. What if your x is positive and your y is negative? This is the quadrant which you are talking about, the fourth quadrant. So there you just plug in the values which is the positive one, and you are going to say 360 minus the theta. That is the angle you are looking for. So these are the basic things which you were supposed to understand when finding the angles in vectors. Thank you for watching the video.